Yeah, some days I feel unfazed, like when I'm with my friends with a cup raised. On Monday, I got a gun raised. Suicidal, do or die until hump day. Then I go right back at it like an automatic. More drinks, more songs, more beats to rap. I need a shrink, I'm gone. More time keeps passing. No watch, no thoughts at all. Just a hat, new era. Rep my P's and those O's. Need the Phillies with the orange and black to feel home. From Citizens Bank back to Camden Yards. It's a tale of two cities, and trust we go hard. Trust we go hard. Yes, we go hard. You said we go hard. I said we go hard. Rockin' my Bob Cousy, stocking up on the loose. The lyrics come easy, but the life is a doozy. And yes, I'm choosy, and no, I won't settle, but I still take pop off over that kettle. Cause I'm talking bigger picture, and yes, I'm gonna hit you with the...
Over the last few decades, and especially in recent times, four-wheel driving has absolutely exploded in popularity, and it really isn't hard to see why. You see, it's a lot harder to put things like a defect station, booze bus, mobile speed camera, phone camera, seatbelt camera, or toll booth on a road like this than it is to put them on roads like this. And combine that with the fact that most modern day four-wheel drives are $80,000 to $100,000+, a lot of which of course is tax deductible, it's no wonder why four-wheel driving has absolutely exploded in popularity. I mean, half the potholes in our major cities require diff locks and low range just to get over. But we'll be getting into all of that later, because in today's video we're going to be going through everything that you need to know about four-wheel driving in Australia, and getting into why this very expensive and sometimes very impractical hobby has absolutely exploded in popularity. Anyway, with that being said, it's time for me to stop the waffle and let's get into it. Now obviously, the most important part of four-wheel driving is the four-wheel drive. And as you can tell by this montage that's currently playing on the screen, there are many different vehicles that can be utilised for four-wheel driving. But as a general rule of thumb, you want something with solid axles, front and rear, four-wheel drive, obviously, and really that's about it, because pretty much everything else that you need, like bigger tyres, taller suspension, a winch, diff locks, etc., has to be added aftermarket, hence why this hobby is so expensive in the first place. Now on the cheaper end of the spectrum, you can get something like an old petrol 80 series Land Cruiser or GQ Patrol, which can usually be picked up for around $5,000 to $10,000, or you can spend an extra few $1,000s and get the naturally aspirated diesel versions, or you can spend an arm and a leg and get the turbo diesel versions, which for some reason these days cost about $20,000 to $30,000, which brings us into the middle of the price range. Now for about 30 grand you should be able to buy most older generation dual cab utes, like an N70 Hilux, PX Ford Ranger, and Isuzu D-Max, just to name a few. And if you can stretch the budget a bit, you may even be able to buy a later model GU Patrol or 100 series Land Cruiser with their own respective 4.2 litre turbo diesel God's motor. Then for about $50,000 to $60,000 you should be able to buy any of the cars mentioned before, or a newer second-hand Land Cruiser or dual cab ute. And then of course, if money's not a problem, or you got sucked into a dodgy finance deal by the car dealership, you can spend big and get something like a brand new Ford Ranger Raptor or a 79 series Land Cruiser. And that brings us onto our next topic, the mole crawler. Now if you're going to spend $50,000 to $100,000+ on a four-wheel drive, then another 20 grand on lift kits, wheels, tyres and accessories, whether it's your money or ANZ's, the last thing you'd want to do is take it out off-roading, roll it over and write the car off. Now obviously, if you have a $5,000 Nissan Patrol with 450 billion thousand kilometers on it, the first thing you're going to do is put a 1 billion inch lift and 40,000 inch tyres and then take it to the nearest off-road track, where you proceed to smash it off limiter like you're in the deserts of Saudi Arabia. But if you roll over a brand new 300 series Land Cruiser that you just drove off the dealership lot yesterday, you don't really want to be pulling your B-pillars straight with a rope tied to someone's tow bar. So you may be thinking, why do people spend so much money on cars to kit them out for off-roading when the hardest bit of driving that they're ever going to do is driving up this ramp into the Chadstone car park? And the answer is simple: because it looks cool. But with that being said, when it comes to choosing the right car for four-wheel driving, just remember that the off-road ability of any car is largely based on how much you care about it. Anyway, now that I've spent almost 5 minutes waffling on about cars, it's time for us to get into the many important aspects of four-wheel driving. But not before I put in a shameless plug for my t-shirts, available from the link in the description. There's not many left, so get in quick. And always remember that if you need that money for something important like beer, the pokies, or buying bombs off of Facebook Marketplace, you can still help support the channel by pressing that subscribe button instead. Anyway, now one of the most important aspects of four-wheel driving has to, of course, be getting bogged. Now whether you're in a $500 Mitsubishi Pajero, $200,000 79 Series Land Cruiser, or priceless AU Falcon Forte, the chances are at some point you're gonna get bogged. Now obviously I don't even have to tell you that getting bogged is an absolute pain in the ass. So here are some important steps that'll stop you from getting stuck in butt nowhere. First of which is letting down your tyre pressures. Now the higher your tyre pressures are in a car usually means less grip. For instance, if you're trying to do fully sick reverse entries in the AU, most people will put 60 to 70 psi in the rear tyres so that they have absolutely zero grip. And then if you're doing highway or just normal driving, you should have around 40 psi. Hence the name, the 40 psi club. Now the most likely places for someone to get bogged are usually big muddy bog holes and sand on the beach. But before you drive on any of these surfaces, what you want to do is pull over and let all the air out of your tyres. And once your wheels look like a sack of potatoes, you should be ready to go. But you see, the most important part about not getting bogged is to be smart about it. If you're driving a car that's very obviously not capable of driving through a big muddy puddle, you've only really got two options. The first one being don't drive through it and drive around it if you can. And of course, if you don't care that much about the car, you've got the second option, which is to hit it at about 100 k's an hour. But most importantly, if you see a massive puddle with a big rock next to it with the word deep spray painted on it, what you don't want to do is drive straight into it like this maniac and fill your nice clean car up with muddy poo water. Now in the event that you do get bogged and you actually want to keep the car, you're gonna have to get out somehow. Now obviously if you've got a winch, you just tie it off to the nearest tree and pull yourself straight out. But obviously not everyone has a winch. You see, winches are fairly expensive and that money could be better off spent on things like my t-shirts. Anyway, if you don't have a winch, the next best thing has to be max tracks. Slip these bad boys under the wheels and hit the gassy and hopefully it'll just drive straight out. Now if this doesn't work or you don't have any on you, now you're in a little bit more trouble. At this point you're going to want someone to help pull you out. Whether you get a mate with you that can give you a quick tug and then pull you out, or you have to wait a few minutes or hours for someone else to come down the same track and give you a pull out. After that, there's only a few more options. Those being, give it some limiter and hope for the best, post your coordinates on one of these Facebook groups and hope that somebody can be bothered to come pull you out, and if all else fails you can just leave the car there, put the key back in the ignition, walk back to the nearest payphone and ring up your insurance company and report the car stolen. Now obviously that last one is a joke. Why would you want to rip off your insurance company? I mean, don't ever do that sort of stuff to us. Anyway, that's enough about getting bogged, let's move on. Because when it comes to off-roading, you're either bogged or you're not. But whether you get bogged or you don't, at some point you're bound to do damage to your car. Now you've all seen the videos of people flipping their cars over, hooning on the beach, or falling into ruts and destroying all of their panels. Unfortunately, f***ing up your car is just part of the experience. But once again, it all depends on how much you care about your car. Things like scratches you can get fixed or just leave them, but if you mess up your panels too bad, you've only really got two options: insurance fraud or chop the car and give yourself a tiny little useless tray. But bigger things like mechanical problems, blown engines and snap CVs will obviously have to be replaced. Now obviously when you're in these positions it'd be rude not to upgrade your vehicle, whether it's an engine swap, body chop, solid axle swap, suspension lift or even just bigger wheels and tyres. You're putting yourself at risk to what is possibly the worst part of four-wheel driving: the defect. Now we all know what a defect is, so I won't be explaining that today. But what I never understood was why 4-wheel drives get defected so often. You see, most if not all 4-wheel drive mods just add weight and increase drag. And even if you modify the engines in these cars, 400 horsepower in a 2.5 ton vehicle isn't really going to be that fast. And I know this from first-hand experience because I put a bigger turbo and bigger wheels and tyres on my 4-wheel drive, and the 0 to 100 time went from an hour to 2 hours. But you see, the worst part about 4-wheel drive defecting is that half the time they set up these defect stations in places like Mansfield, which is quite popular for 4-wheel driving here in Victoria. Anyway, I could sit here and piss and moan about defects all day long, but apart from that, I've pretty much run out of things that I think that I need to cover. So when it comes to 4-wheel driving, always remember to be safe, smart, and don't get caught. And never forget the golden rule that the off-road capability of any car depends on how much you care about it. And on that note, it's time to end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share, and consider copying some drip from the link in the description if you want to hear more teachings from the prophet of your hunt. And if you enjoyed this video so much that you watched it all the way till the end, make sure to comment to let me know.